Ashted, located in Surrey's so-called stockbroker belt. It's about halfway between Leatherhead and Epsom, and in a county which is in the top 5 safest in England, Wales and Northern Ireland.
Ashted is a very affluent part of Surrey. You call it a leafy suburbs, which is about right. People with a few quid in their pocket could afford to live there. It was a very, very nice area, very quiet, quite a tight-knit community around there in that particular area of Ashted.
It's a beautiful Surrey countryside, exactly like you see on the telly, where you go, oh, I'd like to live there. It's lovely and green, really nice houses.
We moved into Harriet's Lane in 1971 and Sharon came, I think, about 1978 in the bungalow just across the road from us. So it was a very friendly place, lovely, lovely place to be.
On the 7th of December 2007, police received a call from Sharon's ex-husband, George.
Her ex-husband had actually called the murder in. He'd found her dead, so he was key in this investigation because although he was the ex-husband, they'd been divorced for many, many years, so he knew a lot about her life. So I was very interested in talking to him to find out if I could piece together who may have wanted to kill her.
Criminologist and former Detective Chief Superintendent Dr. Graham Hill is in Surrey to find out more about the 2007 murder of Sharon Birchwood, whose body was found in her home in the village of Ashted in December of that year.
The cause of death for Sharon was by asphyxiation, by strangulation. But interestingly, when we were doing the post-mortem, we found a stamp that Sharon had clasped into her hand. And that stamp came from an envelope. It was a Christmas card from her mother, and that had actually been delivered on the 4th of December. So again, we're looking at the timeline. We're looking at Sharon's actual last time that she was alive.
We recovered her diary probably in the first week after her death, and then we could see the entries that she had in that diary. And she had a tendency to tick things off if she'd actually done them. And that day, the 4th of December, she was going to the farmer's market in Guildford.
The last sighting they had of her was that she'd got off the train at Guildford Station. I had to go through the CCTV with the police and verify that it was actually her.
They tracked Sharon basically at the railway station when she arrived at Guildford, when she went into town, went into a particular shop, then basically coming back again, getting on the train, and then making her way back. And then she was seen getting off the bus, if I remember rightly, not far from home, because it wasn't far from her home address.
What she was wearing was quite significant as well, because what she was lying in bed wearing was the same clothing that we saw her on the CCTV in Guildford. So that was another aspect that gave us the fact that it was probably the 4th of December that she was killed.
Maria and her team brought in Sharon's ex-husband, George Birchwood, in for an interview to try and find out who would want to kill Sharon. He was close to Sharon and could share vital information on her life and possibly last known movements.
I found it quite horrific.
So there's lots of things you've got to consider at this point, and I'm guessing one of them is also the interview of George, the ex-husband who called the police on the 3-9s call. What was happening with him at that time?
At that time, I designated him as a significant witness. He had known Sharon for many, many years, so he was going to be key into finding out aspects of Sharon's life that would help us identify a suspect.
Is there anything else that you can think of that you think might be useful for us to know?
George's initial presentation when he was spoken to by the police, he appeared to be quite traumatised by what he'd seen in the house, but he very quickly regained his composure.
We had to be careful to not jump to conclusions from George's behaviour, because it could have just been due to the fact that he was upset, he was traumatised. His ex-wife he just found deceased, so yeah, we couldn't read too much into that.
It was a long drawn-out process. It didn't just happen over a couple of hours, it was over days, weeks in fact. We had to build up the rapport with him, and slowly but surely he started making mistakes.
Let's have a look at some of those interviews and see what we can glean from them, yeah?
Tell me everything that you can about what you remember.
I entered the property, no problems. I walked into her room and then discovered her in the bed. She was cold, very cold. So I just went straight out of the room and phoned 999. And waited for the ambulance people to arrive, and then the police.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm okay, thanks. And I don't think you need me to say anything after that, do you?
So what was the general impression that the interviewing officers got about George?
I remember them saying that they felt that George wanted to control the interview. So he would talk freely in areas where he probably felt there was no danger to him. But when they started to probe, then you would see him change his behaviour.
So they were picking up on his demeanour, his presentation style.
Yeah.
In the interview world, that's often called tells, you know, where they start to show signs where they're under pressure and stuff like that. So let's watch a little bit more and see if we can see what he's doing here.
Perhaps now's the right time to sort of give me an understanding of the relationship you have with Sharon. How often were you visiting Sharon in recent weeks?
4 times a week.
You've got it there. You see him move his hand.
So yeah, you see him sort of change his body language significantly when he starts to be put under a little bit of pressure, when he starts to be squeezed a little bit. That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
I walked over the road wherever the light.
He'd sit back if he was talking openly like this, chatting about, it was about the weather and everything else. And as soon as you pushed on a hard subject, it was like this. He'd look at you really hard, or he'd look down and he'd just frown, and his whole face changed because he knew that we knew he was lying.
You could sometimes actually see him thinking, maybe trying to remember what he'd already said, because I think with George, he gave us a mix of truth and lies. And when you have to start trying to remember your lies after hours and hours of interview, it starts to become really, really difficult.
Maria and her team have begun to suspect George had a part to play in Sharon's murder. But they needed to establish a motive.
Does she have any life insurance at all?
Oh yeah, yes she has. Yeah, she's got life insurance.
Okay.
On that £62,000 mortgage.
And do you know if she'll have made a will?
I believe there is a will in the house.
Okay.
But of course, handwritten will like that, I don't know how legal it is.
And what does it say?
Everything's left to me.
Everything's left to you. And do you help me out financially where you're at the moment?
Financially,
Are you in debt?
Oh yeah, I'm always in debt. That's me.
To the tune of what? In total?
Maybe approaching 100 grand.
What do you think?
But there you've got your motive, haven't you? I mean, he even knows the will is handwritten. There it is.
It was crucial for Maria to establish where George was at the time of Sharon's death.
You've got this key bit of information. What do you start to do to sort of build on this? What is your next move?
Again, we would be looking at George's life, so we would be asking where he was at the time that we believed that Sharon was killed. One of the things that George dripped into the interview, that he was in a shopping centre for the time that we believed that Sharon was murdered. So we went to the shopping centre, we seized all the CCTV, and then we started to view it for George to see when he was there, what he was doing, and whether or not he was telling us the truth at that point.
When we viewed the CCTV, it seemed apparent that he was always in view of the cameras. He rarely went into a shop, didn't seem to buy anything. And it did seem slightly strange behaviour. It didn't seem the normal shopping experience you'd expect.
And one of the strategies I had running at the time was to identify people that had been into that house. So he was helping me with that. So we were looking at his phone traffic and asking him who this number relates to. So he was going through those numbers, and then he started to tell us who the numbers referred to.
Right, so you use that Motorola for incoming calls?
That is basically my mobile phone. And it's used for incoming and outgoing calls.
56049.
Right, recently I've had 2 friends here from Thailand.
Okay.
Could be one of those.
So who are the friends from Thailand?
One's called Paul.
Paul, and what's his other name?
I don't know.
George didn't have a lot of information about Paul. He said it was a man that he knew that had come across from Thailand. But he didn't know his surname. He was trying to evade and giving information around the questions that the officers were asking him. So again, for me, that was of significant interest. Who was this Paul?
There was some quite unusual call patterns taking place before Sharon's death, and that raised some suspicion. The number that was ringing George and that George was ringing on his phone was a pay-as-you-go phone, and that there was no activity on that phone after Sharon Birchwood's death.
On the 4th of December, Paul sent George a text message, and it said, "What am I, a fucking mushroom, standing here in the dark?" Our investigations showed that Sharon was actually late home. The train that she was going to catch, she missed, and she'd phoned George to say that she'd missed her train. So she was late. So I believe that Paul was there waiting for her in the house, in the dark, with the lights off, and he didn't know what was going on because Sharon should have been home and wasn't, so he texted George.